I want to echo what Ian said. You look fantastic. You really look fantastic. This has become my favorite Sunday, maybe, of our Christmas celebration. Every year, we kind of do December specific planning back in August, and have the conversation. Should we do this day? I'm so glad we did it again. And you look wonderful. If you didn't see me before, I did have a Buddy the Elf shirt on, but let's be honest, you're not going to pay attention to me if I wear Buddy the Elf while I'm talking about the Bible. So I'll switch back after the service if you want to take pictures. Just so glad you're celebrating Christmas with us. Mark those Christmas Eve services. Invite a friend. Again and again, surveys show that people are very open to personal invitation to coming to church and visiting with a friend or a family member. And so now's the time to just kind of start asking the people that hey, do you have somewhere to worship on Christmas Eve? I'm going to go to this service. You can sit with me. Would love to have you come to our church. So start extending those invitations. We are indeed 11 days away, which always seems hard to believe when you start doing the math, and it seemed like it'd never get here, and it was so far away, and why are we talking about it so soon? And now it's 11 days away, and you're finalizing all of your lists, right? Your shopping list, your grocery list, your want list. Kids have talked to Santa, or they had their parents talk to Santa, or they wrote Santa a letter, or an email, or they FaceTimed or Zoomed. I'm not real sure what kids do anymore. Maybe they do all of that. Tagged him in an Instagram post. I don't know all the way. There's a lot more ways to contact the guy than there was when I was a kid. I'll just leave it at that. But we're running out of days. Like the calendar is kind of winding down a little bit. When we get to this time of the season, and we talk about Santa, we talk a lot about believing. And whether we believe that Santa's going to come through this year or not. If you had siblings, if you grew up with siblings, there was usually one sibling that was a true believer, right? I mean, they were in. They were all in. They were a believer. They believed it didn't matter what we asked him for, it was showing up. Biggest, most audacious, crazy thing we put on our list. He's coming through. They were a believer. And then there was another sibling, and maybe that was you. There was another sibling that was the realist, which is, I think I've told you, that's what pessimists prefer to be called. They were a realist, and they thought, Santa's good for some things, but that thing we asked for, I don't know if we should get our hopes up because he can handle the small things. I'm not sure he can handle the big things. There was always, for that child, there was always kind of this conflict of belief, this tension of belief, this conflict of faith in them. I want to believe, I'm hoping, but I kind of doubt. Perhaps if you were that child, there were some reasons for that. I follow Simon Holland on social media. Don't know if you do. I think he's from Atlanta. Really funny. Follow. I highly recommend. Simon posted this week, this Christmas, I celebrate the 40-year anniversary of not getting the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier. Maybe that's you. Maybe that's where some of your cynicism comes in. Maybe it wasn't a G.I. Joe aircraft carrier, but you can fill in the blank. I still remember getting up that morning and it wasn't there. Life tends to do things to belief. It tends to do things to faith. When we look at the Christmas story, we find a story not just about angels and stars and a manger, although all of that is true. We find a story that very much lays the foundation for so much of our belief about God and about Jesus. Like the Christmas story, packaged in nativity scenes and Christmas plays and that sort of thing, it is a theological story. Like it sets in motion who this Jesus is and who he's going to be. It just lays this belief foundation for us. Everything from the fulfilled promises and prophecies of the Old Testament, like pointing to Jesus, to where Jesus was born, and the family that he was a part of, to things like Jesus was fully God. He was God. He wasn't like God. He wasn't sort of God. He wasn't close to God. He didn't become God at some point later in his life. He was divine. He was God in human flesh, and that's sort of the flip side. He was fully God, but he was fully human, Emmanuel, God with us in human flesh that could be touched. And he felt all of our limitations. He felt our struggles. He felt our pain. He knew what it was to get tired. He felt temptation in the way that we do. He was fully God, fully human, born of a virgin, conceived by the Holy Spirit, sinless, like without sin, so that he could live a sinless life for us and die a sinless death for us. All of those pieces of the story that maybe we know or maybe we don't know quite as well, they're the foundation of what our belief system is. If you begin to remove any of those pieces, then our faith, our belief as Christians would begin to fall apart. In this way and in others, the Christmas story gives us our beliefs, our faith foundation, more than just a reason to decorate trees and wrap gifts and hang stockings. It hands us the true reality of the Jesus that we worship, the God that we interact with. This is who he is. But just like all the other areas of our life, this area gets shaken as well. This belief area, this faith area, this trust area. We talked at the beginning about how our hope gets shaken like a snow globe. It just gets shaken up sometimes. Peace gets shaken up. That is true as well about our faith. Like all of us, we go through times where we question, where we doubt, where we wonder. In this Christmas story, theologically rich as it is, we come to it again this year, and maybe some of us are in that part of life where I'm struggling. I hear this story again, but I have questions and I have doubts. Our faith is sometimes shaken along with everything else in our life. Or maybe it's more accurate to say our faith gets shaken because of everything else in our life. Because of the things that we're experiencing and that we walk through, it produces questions. I want us to talk about a character in the Bible who probably had a lot of questions. Luke chapter 1. If you have your Bibles, Luke is the third book in the New Testament. That's the second part of the Bible, about the last 2/3 of the Bible. It goes Matthew, Mark, Luke. Luke gives us, just background, Luke gives us the most detailed Christmas story anywhere in the Bible. That's why we read from Luke so much in December. He gives us the most details about the Christmas story. Matthew gives us second most details, different details. They had different objectives in their writing. Mark and John kind of skip over that. This wasn't what they were focused on. But Luke lays out all of these details. And in his details in Luke chapter 1, he introduces us to a couple of people. A married couple named Zechariah and Elizabeth, and then a guy by the name of Herod. Just briefly, he mentions Herod in verse 5, who was the king of Judea. So he's the Roman ruler over that part of the world where the Christmas story is unfolding. I'm going to come back to Herod a little bit later in the message, but let's pick up the story in Luke chapter 1, verse 5. Luke gives a 4-verse introduction, and then he really begins his story in verse 5. In the time of Herod, king of Judea, there was a priest named Zechariah who belonged to the priestly division of Abijah. His wife Elizabeth was also a descendant of Aaron. There are 3 characters, Zechariah, Elizabeth, and Herod. We're going to come back to. We continue reading verse 6. Both of them, he's talking about Zechariah and Elizabeth, both of them were righteous in the sight of God, observing all the Lord's commands and decrees blamelessly. That is an amazing commentary on anybody. To say that this couple, this man and this woman, they were righteous in God's sight. They were blameless in everything that they did. Just an amazing truth. These were great people. If you knew them, you would like them. You would want to be their friend. Like, these are good people. If you had a problem, you would go to Zechariah and Elizabeth because you knew they were faithful and they were filled with God's wisdom and His knowledge. These were incredible people, and they kind of fill in the background. We're told Zechariah is one of the priests at the temple, and Elizabeth is a descendant of Aaron, which may or may not mean anything to you. Aaron was the first priest. He was Moses' brother. He goes that far back. He was Moses' brother and was the very first priest when God told Moses to make a tabernacle and set up this priestly system, and this is how we're going to do things in worship. He was the first one. So Luke backfills this story with, these were the best of people. He was the best, absolute best of people. So that then Luke can remind us that even the best people have their faith shaken at times. Even the best people. Even the ones that seem so spiritually strong, so spiritually wise. I mean, if pedigree, if ancestry, if family line, if character, obedience, if any of that would make you immune to hard times, Zechariah and Elizabeth would never have experienced hard times. So Luke sets up the story to say, you know what, they were righteous, and they were holy, and there was pain in their life. We often make assumptions about people, both positive and negative, both good and bad. We see someone and their appearance or the way they talk or something about them swerves into our own biases and judgments, and we make kind of a negative judgment about them. We do that negatively. We do that positively as well. Sometimes we look at people and we go, they got the perfect marriage. They got the perfect kids. Man, I don't know what it is about them. They got the perfect family. They got the perfect relationship to their parents. I bet they never argue. They have the perfect life. Just look at them. They have the perfect life. No such thing. No such thing. We do that, though. We look at our life and we look at somebody else and kind of like Luke, we say, yeah, but they're righteous and they're blameless. Like, I never see them. And they always. No such thing. Even the best people you know, even the person that you admire perhaps the most, they've struggled. They've questioned. They've doubted. We sometimes have people email us as a staff. They'll catch us in the hallway, and they'll kind of sheepishly say, I'm just really struggling. I just got a lot of doubts and a lot of questions. And there is almost this apology with it. There's almost a sense of embarrassment, a sense of shame. Can I tell you what? No shame. No shame in having your faith shaken. Zechariah and Elizabeth did. People in this room have. That's one of the things I try to say to people is, look, you're not alone. If you go through times of questioning, you're not alone. You're not the only one. Now, and I don't mean it in a dismissive, everybody goes through that, you should get over it. That's not what I mean. I mean, no, really, we get it. We get it. If you walked in today and you came to Christmas with questions and doubts and with kind of a fragile faith or a shaken faith, you're sitting in a room full of people who understand that, who go through that, who've been through that. Even the best people you know have their faith shaken. Next verse. But they were childless because Elizabeth was not able to conceive, and they were both very old. Even the best people you know have their faith shaken because even the best people experience the pain and disappointment of life. We all do. The best, and even who you may think of as the worst. We all walk through times that wreck us a little bit, shatter us, a little bit. And it's tempting to come out of that. It's reality to come out of that sometimes with questions and with doubts, because this is what I'm experiencing. This is the pain currently in my life. God, where are you? God, what are you doing? They were blameless and righteous, and they carried with them this weight of their circumstances. Here's what you and I have to be careful of in the midst of circumstances. I must be careful not to define God based on my circumstances, instead of defining my circumstances based on what I believe about God. We have a few note takers throughout the room. My pro-presenter people, just let it hang. That's a lot of words, okay? Just let it hang. It'll be fine. Just leave it up there. I must be careful not to define God based on my circumstances, instead of defining my circumstances based on what I believe about God. All of us are tempted to do that. That's a very human thing. This is happening. We've all been through times where we thought, okay, this happened, so God must be this. This is not happening. This didn't happen, so God must be this. I prayed and nothing happened. That must mean this. Good things happen to bad people, and bad things happen to good people, so that must mean this. It is human nature, I think, to try to draw straight lines and connect dots. We have to be very careful when walking through difficult circumstances that we don't determine, well, God is this because I'm here, instead of knowing who God is all the time. Instead of knowing what His character is like, who He said He is, who He has been in your life in the past. Have you ever had that? Like you went through a time and you just knew God was there and you were confident in God, and then as soon as your circumstances changed, all of your thoughts about God changed. Here's the thing about circumstances, they change constantly. They're constantly changing. Some of you are in a very different circumstance this Christmas than you were last Christmas. Some of you are in a very different circumstance this month than you were last month. Some of you are in a different circumstance today than you were yesterday, and you'll be in another one tomorrow. And if we live our whole life going, well, this is my circumstance, so I'm going to tweak what I think about God. Well, now my circumstance is different. I'm going to tweak what I think about God. We're never going to know and trust God. Because throughout all of those circumstantial changes in my life and in your life, God didn't change. God didn't adjust. God didn't morph into something new because our circumstances change. And our circumstances are real, and He cares about them. I'm not dismissing our circumstances. And I'm also not saying that you can't learn things about God in the midst of your circumstances, but He doesn't change every time my circumstance changes. Therefore, I've got to look at my circumstances through the lens of who God is, and not God through the lens of what's happening right in front of me. Verse 8 and 9. Once, when Zechariah's division was on duty and he was serving as priest before God, he was chosen by lot according to the custom of the priesthood to go into the temple of the Lord and burn incense. He's part of the priest, and one of the roles was to go into the holy place in the temple and light incense, which represented the prayers of the people. So the physical aspect of seeing the smoke, of smelling the incense, was a reminder that, look, our prayers go up and God hears. Which, and Luke doesn't tell us, but I'm just wondering if this was difficult for Zechariah. Because he had prayed. And he had prayed. And Elizabeth had prayed. And incense had been rising. And they had heard nothing. And I don't know that there wasn't some part of Zechariah that thought, why am I doing this? We prayed and nothing. I'm just going to go in and do it. Here's a caution I have when our faith is shaken. When your faith is shaken, guard against routine religion. I'm supposed to do this. I'm just supposed to do and listen, I know when life is hard, showing up is an accomplishment. I understand that part. Showing up is an accomplishment. But be careful that in the struggles of your life, as you're showing up, you forget that God could speak today. God could still move today. Don't lose a sense of anticipation. When you have prayed and prayed and you have waited and waited and God has not moved, it is tempting to just have a routine. I'm just going to go and then I'm going to go home and I'm going to stand, I'm going to sit and I'm going to hear the songs and I'm going to go home. Today, God could speak. In whatever area of your life that you need Him, God could move today. God could show up today. And this is what happens to Zechariah. Verse 11. Then an angel of the Lord appeared to him, standing at the right side of the altar of incense. When Zechariah saw him, he was startled and was gripped with fear. But the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zechariah. Your prayer has been heard." Like all of this time. All of this time. You didn't know if God was near. You didn't know if God was listening. Let me tell you, they've been heard. All of the fear and all of the loneliness and all of the discouragement and all of the time incense was rising. Prayers were going up. Every one was heard. Even the prayer that they had stopped praying. Again, Luke doesn't tell us, but they'd given up on this a long time ago. They were old, Luke says. The prayer they had stopped praying, the angel shows back up and says, "No, God heard that one. You haven't prayed it in a while, but God heard that one. Every single one. You were not alone ever. In any circumstance, God is present. And God is listening. Even when He's not speaking, God is present and God is listening even when He's not speaking. And there are times in all of our lives we're praying and we're praying and we're praying and we feel like nothing's happening. This part of the Christmas story says to us, God is hearing everyone. Your prayers matter. The angel goes on to tell Zechariah about his son. He's going to be named John, and God has this strategic purpose for John, and God is going to use John in a specific ways. Things that Zechariah and Elizabeth would never have thought to pray for in all of their prayers. And the angel says, this is who your son's going to be. Verse 18. Zechariah asked the angel, "How can I be sure of this?" And there's a part of me that wants to say, "You big moron, there's an angel right in front of you." Like, dude, what does it take for you to be sure? And then there's another part of me that thinks that is the $1 million question, isn't it? That's the question. All of us who don't get angels, that's our question, isn't it? How can I be sure? Yeah, but I'm hesitant to believe. How can I be sure? How can I stop worrying and be sure? How can I stop these anxious thoughts? How can I be sure? Such a real question. Such an honest prayer. How can I be sure? Now, the bad news is an angel's probably not showing up tonight at your house, my house. Not going to stand there and say, "I stand in the presence of God." That's how the angel responded. The angel asked him, said to him, "I'm Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God. I've been sent to speak to you and tell you this good news." Come on. And I know what we all would think. Well, I would be sure. I would be sure. But we go through life not sure, don't we? Not sure. And most of the time, we can't be sure of the outcome. And that's just honest. I'm just being honest with you as your pastor. A lot of times we can't be sure that it's going to work out this way. How can I be sure that that will happen? And the truth is, most of the time we can't. We can't put our confidence in this specific outcome. We have to put our confidence, we have to put our faith in that God is still God. I'll say it like this. We can't be sure of outcomes. We can be sure that God is present, listening, and at work, and we may not see Him at work, and we may not know how it's going to work, and we may not understand that it is currently working because everything seems like it's not working. We can be sure that God is here, and God sees and knows and is at work. I don't have a guarantee of all of the outcomes. I have a guarantee that God is with me and God is good. And God is sovereign and God is strong and God is mighty and He will be my strength as I walk through this. Give you just a brief contrast. I mentioned Herod. Luke mentions Herod. Herod is sort of the anti-faith figure in the Christmas story. He's the anti-faith. He is against what's happening. He doesn't believe at all. And every time Herod appears in the story, he's trying to manipulate things to hang on to power. He's trying to control circumstances. So the wise men show up and he tries to get the wise men to come back and tell him where the Christ child is because he wants to harm him. When that doesn't work out, he declares all infant boys are going to be killed throughout the kingdom. Because Herod doesn't have faith, he needs control. This is what happens when our faith begins to grow weak. We then need to try to establish control. We then need to figure out, well, how can I get back in control? This is the anti-faith perspective. Now, God does call us at times to move and to act and to participate in what He's doing. But there is a difference between moving and acting because I'm being led by God and moving and acting because I need to feel like I'm back in control. Faith says, the faith of Zechariah and Elizabeth compared to the anti-faith of Herod says, God, I'm not in control, but You're in control. I'm not sure how this is going to work out, but I have confidence in You. I have faith in You. And here's just a point for reflection. Noticing where I need control may reveal where I lack faith. Noticing where I need control, and I keep trying to get control, and I keep trying to establish control, may be a clue that I'm not fully trusting God yet. Again, there may be parts for you to play. There may be things for you to do. But we know that feeling of, I've got to be in control. And that may be a sign. God, I'm not trusting You. I don't know where this is going. I don't know what this outcome is going to be, but I trust You. I don't like these circumstances. I don't want to be in these circumstances, but I trust You. All of us probably know that December 25th, nobody really believes that's actually the day Jesus was born. It was suggested, that date was suggested for a bunch of reasons we don't have time to go into. And it was finally established in the 4th century. So, like a couple of years ago, 4th century, they picked December 25th and we just stuck with it. Like we just went with it. But the fact that we celebrate the coming of God into the world on December 25th positions it every year very close to the winter solstice. The winter solstice, as you know, is that day when, because of the Earth's tilt and its rotation around the sun, it is that day where our hemisphere is as far tilted, as far away from the sun as it's going to be all year. Which means the winter solstice gives us the least amount of daylight hours and the most darkness. The least day and the longest night. It's next Sunday, which is depressing. Which is why we're going to talk about joy next Sunday. The longest night is next Sunday, longest night of the year. But here's the good news. That night comes and goes. And every night after is just a little bit shorter. And days just a little bit longer. And that makes us happy. If you have seasonally affected depression disorder, that makes you really happy. That makes me really happy. To know night's going to be a little shorter. Day's going to be a little bit longer. We read Luke chapter 1 like we read so much of the Bible. We meet characters who have been in the darkness for decades. And we get to see the moment light comes. But it was a long night before that. And some of us feel that. Some of us are in that. We are in that winter solstice time of long night. And when is the light coming? And we come to this story every year. We celebrate Christmas every year to say, listen, the light has come. The light has come. And the light is still coming into our darkness, into our brokenness, into the places where faith is weak and faith is shaken. Light is coming. Because let me tell you something. The long nights don't last forever. They don't last forever. They feel like it. Right now, some of you feel like you have been in the long night for a long time and you don't know when it's going to shift. You're still tilted away. But just like God reminds us in the calendar every year, darkness can't keep growing. Light has come. Darkness cannot overtake. Light has come. And sometimes slowly, sometimes gradually. Just a little less night and a little more light. And a little less night and a little more light. You can be sure of this. God, we thank you. The Christmas comes every year to remind us light has come, because we live in a lot of darkness. We do. And sometimes that darkness seems great, and sometimes it seems to be growing and lengthening into long nights. But as you ordered the universe as a physical reminder to us, so we would know long nights cannot last forever. For light has come, light is coming. Help us to find our faith in that light. The person walking through darkness this Christmas, remind them of your light, that you are true and unchanged, and you are present. Not a prayer has been wasted, not a tear has been unseen. You are with them. Emmanuel, God, with us. In Jesus' name, amen. We're gonna worship the Lord, and if you need to pray with somebody, we have some prayer leaders who'll be on the sides. If you need to commit something to the Lord, they'd love to pray with you, or just be with you in the darkness that you're feeling, and pray that there would be greater light. If you come to the front, they're going to come to you. They're going to find you. I'll find you. Let's stand. Let's worship the Lord. You come and pray if you need to.